Well, welcome to tonight's debate between candidates for Flagler County Sheriff. Obviously, there's some interest in this race. This is by far the largest audience we've had for any of our debates. So I see Fred Costello sitting back there, who's going to be at our congressional debate tomorrow night. Fred, this is what you got to beat. So
I look forward to it.
All right. Well, I'm Pat Rice, editor of the News Journal, and I'll be your moderator tonight. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us here at Buddy Taylor Middle School. And I'd like to, if we could, just give Flagler County School District a hand for allowing us the use of this great facility. We're going to get going as soon as possible here, but first let me just go over a couple of points. Audience members, if you could, please turn off the sound on your phones. We don't want that Pokemon Go app to go off in the middle of it and interrupt the candidate's stirring answer. Restrooms, the ladies' restroom is down that hallway. I think it says boys' restroom is over here. If you need to get up for any reason, just please do so, but do it as quietly as you can, and no running in the halls. Now in a moment, I'm going to introduce each candidate, and when I introduce them, I encourage you to applaud each of them individually as they're introduced. And at the end of the debate, each of them will give a 1.5-minute closing statement, and I encourage you to applaud them again. But during the debate itself, when the candidates are addressing questions, please be civil listeners. I know when it's a heated political race, sometimes that's difficult, but I ask that you just be quiet, civil listeners. So no cheering your favorite candidate, no booing another candidate with whom you disagree. The next 90 minutes are for the candidates, and it's really up to them to convince you with their words that they're worthy of your support. So thank you in advance for that. Final point, and this is more to the candidates than anybody else, but our timekeeper this evening is the fabulous Frank Fernandez. Frank, there you go. I gotta tell you, Frank, when Dinah does it, she gets a bigger round. I don't know. All right. So here's how it works. Candidates, when Frank holds up the yellow card, that means you have 30 seconds to go. And when he holds up the red card, you need to bring your remarks to a close. Okay, so let's introduce the candidates in alphabetical order. And again, after each one of them is introduced, if you could applaud them, that would be great. Yes. Thank you for reminding me of that. Everybody, can you stand? We can do the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let's introduce the candidates, and I'm going to do it by party. So we're going to start with the Democrats, and first up is Larry Jones. Mr. Jones was raised in Bunnell and served for 30 years with the Flagler County Sheriff's Office, where he attained the rank of sergeant. He founded the Christmas with a Deputy program and retired in 2014. Mr. Jones, welcome to the debate. So to keep from clapping twice for each of them, I'm going to go straight into the next one. Jim Manfrey is the current sheriff of Flagler County. He has served 2 terms as your sheriff, winning in 2000 and again in 2012. He's a graduate of Fordham University and St. John's University School of Law and is a member of the Florida Bar. Mr. Manfrey, welcome to the debate. And now to the Republicans. Don Fleming served as Flagler County Sheriff from 2005 through 2012. Before moving to Flagler, he was the police chief at the Little Ferry Police Department in New Jersey. He's a U.S. Army and Vietnam War veteran. Mr. Fleming, welcome to the debate. John Lamb is currently a lieutenant with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. He has served with the agency for 23 years, and during his employment rose to the rank of Assistant Chief. Mr. Lamb, welcome to the debate. Okay, I've been practicing this name. Jerry O'Gara is a retired warden with the New York City Police Department, City Department of Correction, where he worked at the famous Rikers Island, New York's main jail complex. He's been a resident of Flagler for almost 9 years. Mr. O'Gara, welcome to the debate. Rick Staley is the former undersheriff of the Orange County Sheriff's Office and former undersheriff of the Flagler County Sheriff's Office. He began his law enforcement career 41 years ago with the Oviedo Police Department. Mr. Staley, welcome to the debate. Here's another name I've been practicing. Mark Wisenant. That wasn't bad. Mark Wisenant served for more than 20 years as a law enforcement officer in South Carolina and spent most of his career with the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, earning the rank of Master Deputy. He is a veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard and served during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Mr. Wisenant, welcome to the debate. Chris Yates is a lieutenant with the Holly Hill Police Department, where he has served for 12 years. He's a native of Central Florida and a resident of Palm Coast. And Mr. Yates and I, this is incidental, but we sometimes run into each other at lunch across the street from the News Journal. Mr. Yates, welcome to the debate. And finally, the no party affiliation candidate. Thomas Doherty is a veteran of the New York City Police Department, where he served 20 years and was among the first responders during the 9/11 terrorist attacks at the World Trade Center. He's currently a teacher with the Flagler County School District. Mr. Doherty, welcome to the debate. Okay, here's how the debate's going to work. It's going to be pretty fast-paced, so just know that going in. We have time, because of the number of candidates, we have time for 7 questions that each candidate. We're going to keep it moving, and we're going to do that because Frank's a good timekeeper. So we drew a name out of a hat to see who goes first, and it worked out well for me because that person is Mr. Doherty, so it'll be easy for me to keep track of who's answering what question. So, Mr. Doherty, we'll start with you. A story in Sunday's News Journal by Tony Holt captured the storied history of Flagler County sheriffs. So after reading that, or if you didn't read it, what is it about the position of sheriff here that would cause 9 of you to want to be elected to do it?
Well, I think being a sheriff is a great opportunity to connect with your community. There's a lot of things that a sheriff can do. It's one of the most important positions in the county government. My position as sheriff, my first priority is going to be to our kids in this county, to our young people in the county. We have to make sure that our young people are taken care of and mentored, and they're the most important people that we have to take care of. As a sheriff, there's a lot of things you can do with young people. And as an American, as a resident of this county, to me there's nothing more important than raising our kids up and making sure that they're successful in life.
Thank you. Mr. Fleming?
Thank you. After reading that article, you sometimes sit there and scratch your head and say most of these sheriffs were either killed or removed from office. But being a sheriff is a calling. It's a calling for me for 38 years of my life. My life has been nothing but law enforcement and military and education. I work with children on a steady basis during my career, 17 years at Little League Boys Club. I've worked with the senior citizens. I established programs in the Sheriff's Office, such as the Citizen Academy, the Bicycle Patrol, I'm trying to think of them all, I can't remember all of them, but there are programs out there that are geared toward people, community, self-defense for women. These are programs I believe that open up the community and the talk between law enforcement and people. And I'm a person who likes to establish the law enforcement community with the community, to establish the openness and ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen, just if we could just let the candidates answer the questions. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. I did read the article and very interesting. Somebody like Plymouth said that some of the officers got removed from office, some of them got killed on the job, and some got hurt on the job. But being a sheriff is very important to me. It's a lifelong history. I started off as a kid dreaming to be about a deputy sheriff one day and being a sheriff. Kids come first to me. I implemented a program, Christmas with a Deputy, which is dear to my heart. I love kids. I was a school resource officer, and we need to invest in the kids today because they are our future. If we don't invest, there's not going to be a future tomorrow. So, and also the elderly. Plum Coast was developed as a retirement community, so we got to look out for the elderly and take care of the elderly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lamb?
Yes. As I've stated before, law enforcement is an extremely noble profession. And why so many candidates, in my belief, aspire to reach that goal is we've all dedicated our lives to some expertise via law enforcement or whatnot. In the 23 years that I've done law enforcement, I've always aspired. I've always wanted to reach the highest level I possibly could because I recognize that as sheriff, you set the tone, not just for within the agency, which is extremely important, but also within the community. It's important that you understand safety and security and quality of life. The sheriff sets the tone. So with positive reinforcement, positive enthusiasms, we can do that within this community engagement, being effective within the community, finding the stakeholders within the business and within the communities. That's what sheriff is supposed to do. So that's what attracted me. As I went through the ranks of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, I realized that this Flagler County is where I wanted to live, and I want to bring my knowledge and skills and abilities here because I want to do what I know how to do well. Just like Abraham said, Lincoln said, know what you want to do and do it well. And that's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manfred?
Thank you, Pat. And thank you, Tony, for a great article, well-researched. And I think the essence of being a public servant is knowing the history of the area that you serve and being committed to it. I've now been a resident of Flagler County for 20 years. All my family's grown up here. I'm invested in this community. My kids were all been educated here. And I guess it's a theme, but my career really in law enforcement in Flagler County, after 20 years in other places, started on a baseball field, the PAL baseball team, where two deputies encouraged me to run for office. I have spent a lot of my time being the sheriff, not just in the enforcement part, but in the prevention part. We have one of the strongest PAL programs in the state of Florida. It's 1,000 kids. And I think that's really what entices me to continue to be the sheriff, is putting as much effort into prevention as we do in enforcement. And I think we have successfully done that through our PAL programs, our community outreach programs, and just my will to serve the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Gara?
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Holt, I didn't read your article, but I've been living here 9 years and I've done research. What I thought was awesome about the sheriff's position here, any commoner, any American can be a sheriff. The first sheriffs here were surveyors, engineers, turpentine woodsmen. And I thought to myself, I was looking at the problems that were going on here, I said, I could fix this. I could fix the problem at the top of this office. I've done it in a huge agency, minus Mr. Doherty. Everybody else's agency here could fit in mine. I had very, very unpleasant working conditions, and I came out of there successful. I know I can run this sheriff's office and give the best that I have to give for you. And I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Staley.
Well, I'm running for the community. I think I bring a certain level of experience that's unique. I have 41 years as a sworn law enforcement officer in the state of Florida. About 30 years of that was full-time. The rest of that was fully certified reserve, which I still am today. I'm the only one that's running that has a successful business background. After I moved here 10 years ago, I started a security company. In the height of the Great Recession, I saved 60 jobs, grew it to 128 employees, sold it to a national firm. So I'm the only guy that has both successful business and government experience. I come from the 4th largest agency in the state of Florida, the Orange County Sheriff's Office, where I commanded 2,000 men and women, $120 million budget. Quite frankly, I'm running to give back to a community that opened us, my wife and I, with their hands, supported us in our business, well, I just ran out of time, so thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Wiseman.
That was a neat article, by the way. Margie, who's a business owner in Benell, her uncle, great uncle, actually was the deputy who was killed after Sheriff Perry Hall was killed. So history is unique in a way. We love the history here in Flagler County. This is our home now. Originally my home was Saluda, South Carolina, but home is where you make it. Actually, the first sheriff in Saluda County was my grandfather, along with him. We have a love for this community. We have a vested interest in this community, and we need to bring this community together. It's going to take a sheriff working together as one with the deputies, with the community, and hearing the voices of the community, because your voices will be heard and they will be acted upon, because there's no cookie cutter for the problems that we face in today's society. From Beverly Beach, from speeding, to other places that may be prone to narcotics and the gang activities. But it starts with the school systems, our children, and as your sheriff, Deputy Mark for the youth, we will preserve our community and the safety.
Thank you. And Mr. Yates.
The sheriff is the leader of the department. They need to be looked up upon by the deputies and the community. They have to lead by example. They have to be in the trenches, not behind a desk pointing fingers and giving orders all the time. That's me. I want to get out and build the bridges between the community and the department. I want to have the community trust in the sheriff and the sheriff's department. Excuse me. You know, I'm questioned about my experience. Yes, I have 12 years experience in law enforcement. Before that, I worked for Walmart as assistant manager, managed multi-million-dollar budgets, supervised up to 300 people at any given time inside the store, handled the citizens' complaints, handled their wishes, everything. I'm here for you. I'm devoted to this community. I was born and raised in Ormond Beach. I moved up here just under 4 years ago, and I'm here for you. I love this community, and I want it to be my long-term home. And I just ran out of time, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next question, and this one is to you, Mr. Fleming. And the question is this: if elected, what changes would you make in the sheriff's office during your first year? And Sheriff Manfred, when that question comes to you, it would be what, if you're re-elected, what would be the change that you would foresee over your next term?
Thank you. I would establish a bridge or a gap between the community and the citizens and the law enforcement agency. I would institute a stronger training division within the deputies and the people that work in the agency. I would also do some cost control. I am a fiscal responsible person when it comes to money. During my 8 years, I was always very fiscally conscious on what we spent. I always gave money back. And during those rough years, I never laid off one deputy. I believe that cost control, communications between the deputies, respect for the deputies, pay for the deputies, and a better working environment that they can come to when they get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
First thing I would do is bridge the gap between the community and law enforcement, because the law enforcement has lost all respect from the community, so we need to get that back first. And also, we need to look into taking care of all the citizens, listen to them, what they're saying. I'm gonna lend the ear to every voice in Flagler County, not just lend the ear, I'm gonna listen, and I'm gonna take care of the problem. And also, we need to know that the sheriff office is here to support everyone. And what I would do is, if it take 5 minutes to get to a call in Henry Dunes, I think it should take 5 minutes to get to one in Monday. So we don't need to discriminate against anyone here in Flagler County. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lamb?
Yes, sir. Actually, it's twofold. It's what you're going to do within the agency and what are you going to do for the community, because they coincide and they work together. So first, within the community, I'm going to establish once a month we're going to walk a different community in Flagler County. The officers and supervisors are going to walk with me. The elected officials are invited. We're going to talk about what's going on specific to that community, to the R, to the W, to Daytona North, to Beverly Beach, and talk to them about what's going on in that community. Also, monthly citizens advisory meetings. I know the sheriff does them quarterly. I'd like to move that to monthly and have it specifically, geographically, specific to that. So we're talking about what's going on in that area. Continuous improvement. We need to look at all the processes within the agency and improve on it. Constantly improve. Either you improve or you fall behind. Traffic. We need to address the traffic problem. A lot of traffic fatalities in Flagler County. Career development within the agency. Identify what they want to do in the agency and make them better. Continuously train within the community, tabletop, situational awareness, scenario-based training with the community. Also LDI and succession planning, those are very important, so I'll be busy that first year.
Thank you. Mr. Manfred?
Well, one of my 3 priorities, first of all, is getting our inmate facility accredited. That would be the first time in its history. We've gotten the agency re-accredited, we've got communications accredited for the first time. Now with the new inmate facility, it's a state-of-the-art facility. It's an opportunity for us to get it accredited for its first time. Number 2 is our community outreach. We've had a very successful community outreach program with Sergeant Mike Lutz, who does defensive classes with females, our PAL program, our neighborhood watch. It's time to expand that program. That's what the community is looking for. It's more and more communication. I think we've done that very successfully through social media. With our Coffee with a Cop that we do on a quarterly basis, our Citizen Advisory Council, but we can do more. Third is we need more deputies. We've been growing as a community. Reduced upper management from 15 down to 7 and hired 17 more road deputies. It's just not sufficient. We're growing at a very fast clip, and we need to be able to grow our ranks as well to keep up with that growth.
Thank you. Mr. O'Gara?
Okay, in order to get anything done, at the top, you have to have someone the subordinates trust. I'll put in a policy. First thing I'll do, day 1, put in a policy that will prevent sheriffs and under-sheriffs from giving gifts, taking gifts, using taxpayer-funded property for their own personal political gain. I'll then create job security and a career path. Once these officers get to sergeant, their careers are on hold. If you bring in old regimes, or regimes from other cities, their career path is gone. So you can talk about all the programs you're going to do. If you don't have their cooperation, all the promises made here will not come even close to being true, because you won't have an agency that's supporting you, because you obviously shown you will not support them.
Thank you. Mr. Staley?
Well, in the first year, we'll create 3 districts. Flagler County has 3 distinct communities. You have the island side, you have the urban core, Palm Coast, you have the west side, the farmers, the ranchers, the Mondags, Daytona North, that area. The cookie cutter service delivery doesn't work. 3 distinct districts with deputies assigned that want to work those distinct areas and impact the problems that are unique to those 3 areas. The crime issue in the island side is not the same as on the west side, and so forth. We'll implement guardianship policing, so a much improved version of community policing. In the schools, I'd like to see the GREAT and the DARE program. Work environment, I've always led by example, and that will continue. We will focus on gangs, drugs, repeat offenders, and the fugitives. And we're also going to work on the quality of life issues in your neighborhoods, like the traffic. I've been walking the neighborhoods, and let me tell you, if you live on a street that ends in a drive, you got a serious traffic problem.
Thank you. Mr. Wiseman.
Well, it's a simple equation. One, empowering the deputies, the men and women that currently serve at our agency, listening to their needs. They've been neglected for many years. We need to empower them by listening to what their needs are, and also the needs of the community. The community's had volume to say in the past several months with this campaign. We need to act on the community's needs. And that's the reason why I want to implement our residential deputy program, where the deputy knows the community and the community knows the deputy. And by having a sheriff interactive committee once a month, give me 3 problems, 3 issues in your community, which will be divided up. And the next month, we'll have a follow-up to show you what we've addressed, but it's what we can do together. It's not I. There's no I in team. It's what we can do in the community. And today's society, a word means something to me, and I'm giving you a word as sheriff that we're going to make a difference together, not as one, together.
Thank you. Mr. Yates.
Thank you. First thing I want to do is build the morale with the current deputies that are here. They're not happy. They want to change, and I'm the change for them. I want to create a crime suppression unit that will aggressively go out and attack all the areas where we're having car breaks, shootings, robberies. We need an aggressive police department that will take that. Also, increasing staffing. We don't have enough deputies out here to patrol the area correctly. Creating districts is good. I agree with Mr. Staley on that. I'm not sure about 3. I would like to see 2, north and south. Have them run by sergeants and subordinates to for them to hit all the communities and know their citizens. The current advisory board that they have, I want to have it where it's not just the community and the sheriff. I want it to be deputies, council people, public works people. I'm out of time, so I'm
All right, thank you. Mr. Doherty.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have to have a sheriff that gets out from behind the desk and that's seen in public, that interacts with the public. It has to start with our schools. It has to start when our kids are small, when they're little. It starts with education. I've been an educator for 10 years. It's always the answer to success in this country. So we have to educate our children about police work, about what it's about. We have to educate our parents and our families about what police work is about, what their roles are in bringing up kids. We got to keep our young people out of trouble. What I want to do is I want to start a criminal justice program in our school district, in both our high schools. I want to get kids involved in the community and get those kids, when they come up from high school, get them into the police department here, not go out of the county to get police officers. Let's give these kids a chance here in this community. It's all about our kids.
Thank you. Sheriff Manfrey, a number of people brought up issues that they mentioned at the sheriff's office. So if you want 30 seconds to respond, you have it.
Sure. First of all, as far as the Community Advisory Board, although we only meet on a quarterly basis, we interact on a monthly basis. As far as the districts go, when I started the Sheriff's Office, we had 2 districts, as you know, Rick, and we got rid of those 2 districts because they were not working. We don't have a lot of different types of crime. The crime is pretty specific here. We don't have a lot of violent crime. I think it works well the way we have it in terms of zones. There's a zone for the beach, there's a bunch of zones for the urban core, and there's a zone for the west side. And we've created an agricultural office that deals specifically with the issues that occur out on the west side.
Thank you. We're going to go to the next question, and it's to Mr. Jones. And the question is this. In recent weeks, America has witnessed 2 terrible times when an assailant has targeted and killed multiple law officers. Here, just like in the rest of the nation, these attacks have put law officers and citizens on edge. So what would you tell deputies who are understandably more fearful for their own safety after these attacks?
I understand that. Tragedy has happened. You know, we gotta all admit that. But to fix the problem, we gotta face the problem. I would tell the deputies, you know, we chose to do this job. We gotta go out there and treat people with respect, be very careful about what's going on. And technology has changed and everything like that. So what we would do is, you get a call of a shots fired or anything like that, we would invest in some drones and put drones up and go out and check and see what's going on before we send a deputy on the scene and stuff. Because I can replace a drone, I can't replace the life of a deputy.
Thank you. Mr. Lamb?
Yes, actually being still an active law enforcement, and my wife who just recently hung up the badge, it's fearful. We're being targeted. Law enforcement is being targeted. Some of these communities where law enforcement are being targeted, there is a breakdown in the community engagement. So we need to make sure that we continuously build on the engagement that we have in Flagler County. Understand this, what would I do? Look, first of all, I got your back. I still wear body armor. I'm still out there answering calls for service. I will be there if I can. I want the officers to try and double up as best they can. There's safety in numbers. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Identify who the prolific offenders are. Use social media to identify the threats against law enforcement. Use the FBI, use the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Use the intelligence to identify the threats against us, and we'll address it. So I'm looking forward to working closely to address that problem, but also building the engagement with the local, with the community, and also with the business leaders within the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manfred?
First of all, the essence of community policing is realizing that we cannot do this job. I have 135 road deputies. There's 105,000 people. There are 600 square miles. It is impossible for us to be everywhere at every time. So there's a recognition that we need each other, that we need to communicate with each other. And let me tell you the two things we have done. First of all, we started a One Common Ground group almost a year ago after the Charleston shootings that really electrified the community and the country about these kind of issues. It's a group with pastors, the school district, the NAACP, and the sheriff's office. And we've been meeting quarterly to talk about these issues and admit that there are issues that we need to discuss. The other side of it is protecting our law enforcement. We have changed our tactics to make our law enforcement more safe. And we brought an internationally recognized speaker in the other day, Gordon Graham, who talked for a full day on officer safety and how we can be more tactically aware and how we can be safer. And one of the huge issues that people... I'll continue later.
All right. Mr. O'Gara?
Job is difficult and dangerous. Every day, these men and women put their lives in danger. Every day, I went to work and 100% of the people that I had to deal with wanted to do bad things to me. So we learned to be proactive. We have to get them better equipment. I realize we're guardians, but we have to be able to turn on the warrior status when people are trying to kill us. We need hopefully we'll get a president that will reinstitute the policy that will allow us to get the equipment to protect us. The way that it's happening right now, people out there on their own, and it's just, we have to get each other's back, and it's a prayer. Every day it's a prayer that you say goodbye to your family. It could be your last day. And it's always been the case. It's just gotten worse. Every day they go out, their lives are in danger. It's just gotten worse, so we have to act equally.
Thank you. Mr. Staley?
Well, it takes multiple avenues to resolve this problem. First off, I'm the only one that's actually been shot on duty, so I get it. I've been in a law enforcement officer's shoes. But you have to equip and train your deputies properly. But at the same time, you have to also equip and train them for less lethal. At the same time, you build a community relationship with your churches, your pastors, civic groups, different clubs, and so forth, so that you try to prevent one of these incidents occurring. I'm also certified in Homeland Security, appointed to the National Threat Assessment Board. And most people don't know it because you only hear about the big incidents. But last year in 2015, there were 71 ISIS-inspired attacks in the United States. So the danger is out there. And I will never forget as your sheriff that while my deputies go out and risk their life to protect you, they are doing that under my authority as sheriff in my place. So they're really risking their life for me also.
Thank you. Mr. Resident.
As a veteran of Iraqi freedom and a member who served in combat zone as a squad leader in a law enforcement mission, you have to put your trust back in that person that you serve with. In return, they put the trust back in you as your leader. I'm not saying we're at war, but we're in a unique situation where you have to put your trust back in the organization, make sure that you take care of their organization, equipping the organization, not with just equipment, but with training and with resources that they feel comfortable, and putting the trust back in the community. And as a chief warrant officer, and I'm certified in Homeland Security, it's about protecting our nation as a whole, and we will work together as one, working with other organizations. I have 6,000 hours of training, but it's not about my background, it's about what we can do together and working together as one. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yates.
As a current law enforcement officer, I deal with this daily. You're always watching your six, as we say, on the job, and for all the law enforcement out here, I'll always have your six. It's a courageous occupation to be a law enforcement officer. Besides the U.S. military, it's the only profession I know that where you run towards the gunfire versus running away. We all take an oath, and that oath is to put our lives on the line and to risk the ultimate sacrifice for the community that we serve. Y'all, every day that we put that badge on, we remember that oath and we live that oath. As far as training, I want to make the Flagler County Sheriff's Office the elite training division for agency in the state. I want people to look up to us, come to our training, take our training back to their agencies, and make everybody safe. Okay, sorry. That was my time to stop.
Okay. All right. Mr. Doherty?
Well, I get the advantage of piggybacking off everyone here, and a lot of these ideas are very good ideas. It all starts with communication in the community. A lot of these incidents that happen can be avoided through getting information. In a lot of cases, there were people who knew that something was wrong, and they didn't come forward with the information. That's where education comes into play. So if you have kids in the school district, you tell them, you present yourself to the kids in the schools, you build that trust with them, you tell them that you're not going to get in trouble for giving information. In fact, your information is going to be confidential. You don't have to worry about people finding out who gave you that information. I was on the street in New York City for 20 years and never shot my gun and never got shot at. A lot of that was my training, and a lot of it was using common sense. You have to use tactics. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Fleming?
Thank you. As a sheriff, I think everybody in that agency knows that I back them up, and I will always back them up. I don't want them going out there with a hesitation on their mind when they go stop a car or go to a call. Second of all, training is very important. Training not only within the agency, but training also with the community. Meeting the shareholders, the stakeholders in the community. Black lives matter, blue lives matter, all lives matter. And that's what we have to do. We have to instill in our children, in our schools, in the early stages, how we can get them involved in our community, not involved in drugs, not involved in crimes, but work with them on a steady basis to get them to start respecting the law enforcement officer and respecting themselves, not having black on black killing people, not having white on white killing people, but being respectful to their family, to the law enforcement officers, and to their community which they live in. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Lamb, the next question goes to you. And I'm going to follow, this is, I think, a related thread question. But many in the African American community in America believe they've suffered unfair treatment at the hands of law enforcement for decades. The recent attacks on police officers followed videotaped instances of police shooting black men. how can law enforcement build a more trusting relationship with African Americans and, for that matter, for the rest of the community?
Well, I take a lesson from my own personal life. My wife of 25 years is Hispanic, which is also a large minority group within our community. And we've been successful in our marriage because we communicate. We communicate, we communicate, we communicate. Say it 3 times because it's that important. We need to communicate. Everybody needs to understand the perspectives of everybody involved. People we're stopping in traffic stops or engaging in domestic violence need to understand why we do what we do. That's why the Citizens Academy is a great program. The Ride Along program is a great program so people have a better understanding of what it is law enforcement does. There's already diversity training within the Criminal Justice Standard Training Commission as mandatory training. There's already a bias-based profile accreditation standard in every agency that's been accredited by the Commission on Florida Accreditation, and Flagler County just received its accreditation. So it's important that we follow that. And as sheriff, it's my job, when somebody steps out of the line, to recognize it and to address it and work with the community. And that's what I'm looking forward to doing, building upon that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manfred.
It's all about establishing trust with the minority community. I've been a member of the NAACP for some 20-odd years. I've been their counsel for periods of time as well. I have a great communication with them. And the things that they are looking for and the black community is looking for is a sheriff who they can trust, and not just with words but with deeds. So what we have done is not only install community-oriented policing, is get the sheriff behind it. I am active in the community. I'm in 7 different organizations. We have community outreach. We have a community with a cop. We have installed body cameras, which is a huge issue for the minority community. That has been implemented almost for 2 years. We're only 2, I think it's only 2 sheriff's offices in the entire state that have done that. But we also have to do more in terms of recruiting minorities into our community. We have you had a story in your paper about one of our deputies just came back, Jason Williams. We need to do more in terms of reaching out to the community and recruiting minorities as law enforcement and making it a career that they want to invest their lives in.
Thank you. Mr. O'Gara.
This issue has been around longer than I've been alive, and I suspect in the minute that I have to speak, I'm not going to resolve it. Right? Working with 85% of my workforce, 10,000 plus officers, 85% were minorities. I listened to the issues back then for 20 years. There's a vast misunderstanding on what police do and the cultures outside in the streets. So yes, we have to bridge those gaps. All the programs everybody's talking about, every agency in the country is doing them. They need to do better. There are better ways to do it. We have to educate the youth early that it's not okay to call the cop because you didn't like what she asked you to do. It's not okay to yell at police officers or throw anything at them. They have to learn early about respect and civility and the common laws. This way we're not educating them in college when they're in prison, when they're 30 years old. They need to understand what a police officer does, why he does it. A common...
Thank you, Mr. O'Gara. Mr. Staley.
It's about community outreach and building the trust. Historically, there have been issues in the South in law enforcement and the way law enforcement has treated the minority community. My mother's been at the forefront of this. She's 95 years old, probably all her life. And the reality is you have to build the bridges before an incident happens. You have to do the community outreach. You also have to reach out to schools and minority community to increase the participation in hiring. And to do that in Flagler County means you have to be competitive, or you're just not going to get the minority candidates to apply, whether it's civilians or in the sworn side, because they're going to go to surrounding areas that pay better, because it's very competitive and it can pretty much open their door. You have to have an environment inside the agency that also entices people to come work here and apply. That's just part of it.
Thank you. Mr. Wiseman?
Well, we need to look at it as one. We're all one people, regardless of our color. I do not see color as a squad leader and as a member of our organization. We are all carrying together, and we're all going to work together as one. And we're going to assess any issues that we have in Flagler County, not just to look at national issues, is it perceived or is it actual issue here? We're gonna build roots with everyone. We're gonna have a tree that's gonna grow out and branch out together as one and work together as one and assess the problems that we see, regardless of where we're located. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Yates?
I look at this as, it's not a Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, it's a all lives matter, a human lives matter. I want everybody to feel that the agency is going to treat everybody the same. They're not going to see color, they're not going to see black, Hispanic, white, purple, blue, green. They're going to see human beings. I will instill the trust in the community that every deputy, from the chief deputy all the way down to the newest employee, follows that guideline. They're going to treat everybody with respect. They're going to treat everybody fair. If you've done the crime, you're going to be treated or, arrested if you have to. At the end of the day, we all have to go home safe, the community and the law enforcement officers. Excuse me. So, to build the community, or to build the bridge between the community and the sheriff's office, we're going to instill training that will take it beyond just a race and just make it human beings.
Thank you. Mr. Doherty?
I think it's very interesting that we're all sitting here in a school and all of us have talked about education. We all know that at school we learn the basic ABCs, but as a teacher in the school district here, I'm amazed at the fact that we don't have a law enforcement awareness program going on in the schools here. The kids here and the families here, they have to understand what police work is about. And that's the key, education. Just start when they're young. That's how you bridge the gap.
Thank you. Mr. Fleming?
Thank you. When I was sheriff, we did establish these lines of communications. Not only the NAACP, the Portuguese community, the Filipino community, the Hispanic community, all the communities. We worked with them in different types of ways, and we always took care of what we had to take care of. I believe that the education, the training, the communication, all of these things are relative to how we have to work and how we have to get along. I believe also that this community here does not have the problems that the nation has. This community here is a very tight-knit community. Basically speaking, everybody gets along very well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Jones?
Yes, thank you. I can't believe we still dealing with this black-white issues today. The big red truck goes around and get blood. And they get it from all different races, sexes, and everything like that. But when it comes to someone that needs some blood, it doesn't go and say, this can come from a white person, you need that. They just grab blood. So we should all be brothers and sisters, and let's move on. Let's move on and forget about this black and white issue. It's over and done with. Let's move on and bridge the gap between the community and get involved and support each other.
Thank you.
Mr. Doherty said about education schools.
Yes, you have 30 seconds.
I agree with Mr. Doherty. First of all, we have a very strong school resource officer program in this community, and it does teach officer awareness. There are some suggestions of bringing the GREAT and DARE program to the education area. We can't do it simply because of the testing. There isn't enough time in the school day for these programs anymore. We are meeting tomorrow with the school superintendent and our SROs to deal with these issues. How do we find time in the school year to have some of these programs? How do we find time in the school year to address some of these black-white issues that filter into our community? So that is part of our plan.
All right, thanks. And let's go to the next question. And by the way, the audience, you've been incredibly civil so far. That's great. I feel though like if we gotta energize up here a little bit, so or otherwise we're all gonna have to get them to do the Macarena or something. So let's go to the next question, and it's to you, Mr. Manfred. the position of sheriff is obviously political. I've had people who are sheriffs in my career say, you know, we're not really political like other offices, but believe me, it's political. That's why 9 people are running for it. So as sheriff, how would you or how do you balance the job of law enforcement with the politics that come with any elected position?
Again, the word politics, you know, the way a lot of people use it has a bad connotation, but the root of the word politics is polis, meaning city. The idea behind it is that we're all involved in politics at one point or another if we really believe in our community and want it to grow. So I always believe that good government is good politics. That if you do the things that the public expects, and in this instance, keep you safe, which we have done, its lowest crime rate in 15 years, and you communicate, and you do not make political decisions. I've never made, in terms of staffing, I've obviously hired people from all political parties. Mrs. Staley is my undersheriff, he's Republican. I think most of my upper management are Republicans, and I've never asked them that question. I've never put anyone in a position because they were Republican or Democrat or have some ideological test. The idea, and I think what the public expects, and what grows confidence, is when you put people in the positions based on their merit, not who they know or some political affiliation.
Thank you. Mr. O'Gara.
Okay, it's obviously political. First thing you have to do is remove it from the office. Okay? Just a simple thing like the practice of people taking their marked cars home. I do not want that sheriff to put a Jerry O'Gara for sheriff on his lawn while that car's in his driveway, because it's telling the whole neighborhood he doesn't get along with his boss. That's one way to stop the politics. You can stop it from within. You can take your budget and balance it out over 4 years, so that election year, we're not seeing the sheriff's face in every magazine, publication, movie theaters. You know, we see an increase of entertainment with the motorcycles going around and the canines and the tools and the toys. It starts in the office. It's obviously political, and that's one of my major focuses, is to minimize that as much as I possibly can from within.
Thank you. Mr. Staley?
Well, the system in Florida creates it as a political office, but when you call 911, you're not asked you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, or no party. You just give them the information and run. So the bottom line for me is that I want to encourage my deputies, when I'm your sheriff, to go out there and do their job. I'll have your back, and don't worry about politics. Just go out there and make the community safe and reduce crime. I will make decisions based on what's good for the community and what's good for the agency, not what's the best political decision because I'm worried about getting reelected. If I'm not reelected, then so be it. But I truly believe that if I am doing a good job and our employees, both civilian and sworn, are doing a good job, then whoever is the sheriff, when I'm your sheriff, I'll get reelected. But I'm not going to make decisions based on I got to get reelected.
Thank you. Mr. Wiseman?
Well, the thing with me, you're going to know your sheriff, you're going to know Mark, and you know you're going to put your faith in Mark, and I'm going to put my faith back and trust back in the people that serve every day, the men and women of Flagler County. They have a constitutional right coming up. We've got one coming up where we're going to vote. And if they don't believe in the leadership of the organization, what's happening right now, they can go in that ballot box and click another button. But my ultimate objective and mission is bringing back the trust. We can trust the community, you can trust your deputies, and you can trust Mark Winston as your sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Yates?
Most of the time when you think of a politician, you think of what promises are they going to keep and what lies are they going to tell you. I'm only going to tell you two. The first promise is I have no hidden agendas. I'm running for this office to work for you. If in 4 years you're not happy, you fire me. That means I failed you. The second one is I'm going to work 24/7, 365 for you. Every day I will be here. If there's a major incident, I will be there. I've already told my wife, and she's kind of mad at me, we're not going to have all these vacations that I normally take, because I'm going to be here for you. And that's it. She's not in the audience. She's with my son doing her orientation, so she's not here, so I can throw a joke out. I have a problem, and I'm not calling you out, Mr. O'Gara, but if I'm the sheriff and a deputy doesn't agree with me or doesn't want me reelected, I want him or her to have the right to put another sign in their yard. Can I just go for a second?
You have 10 more seconds.
A second. Because my problem shouldn't be being mad at that deputy for voting for someone else. It should be me being mad at myself that I didn't earn their respect to be reelected. Thank you.
All right, thank you. After we go through the other candidates, I'll come back to you. Now, you've got a very good audience, but again, no applauding, unless it's like a stirring answer that's non-political, which won't happen during this part. Mr. Doherty.
Well, it's kind of interesting. When I came here from New York 4 years ago, I went to election office to register to vote, and I told them I was an independent from New York, and they basically told me, well, we don't have independents here. We have what we call NPAs. And I was like, what's that? And they said, that means no party affiliation. So I said, oh, okay, I guess I'm an NPA then. And I had no plans of running for sheriff 4 years ago. I saw the way things were going, and to be quite honest with you, I miss it. I miss being out there, I miss being on the street, I miss meeting people, I miss doing police work, I miss trying to help people. So that's why I'm running. Another interesting thing is, if you look at the Flagler County election website, if you go to the computer and look it up, as far as I know, I'm the only person that has not accepted any political contributions from anyone.
Thank you. Mr. Fleming.
Thank you. As your sheriff and being a member of the Florida Sheriff's Association, I played politics many times when I walked through the halls of Tallahassee to speak to a representative or a senator to try to get a bill passed for the Sheriff's Association that was beneficial to law enforcement as well as to our community. I believe the concept of politics, everybody's taking this concept about it being a sign on your lawn. When I deal with the city of Palm Coast and the future mayor back there, we play politics because we have a give and take. We do things the right way. I play politics with my wife when we go out. We have to talk about these things. But I believe politics are a necessary evil to the job that we do. But I am a police professional, and I'd be a law enforcement professional for the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Politics is politics, but the sheriff's office, the sheriff should be a sheriff. Don't worry about the politics. Just take care of the people and take care of the deputy. The line guys that out there putting their life on the line every day, take care of those people. You can sit in the office all day long and Monday night quarterback, but you don't know what's going out there on the line out there if you ever walked in those guys' shoes. And I walked in those shoes for 30 years out there. And I'm ready to get back and start walking again in those shoes as your sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Lamb.
Yes, it is a political position. The sheriff is. It's a constitutional position. It's an elected position. Recognizing that the sheriff serves all. We run on our own political affiliations, and I am a Republican, and I always have been. I haven't changed my party based on the population size or whatnot. But we recognize that we serve all. The call to politics is like the call to law enforcement. It's a call to serve, and that's what I'm looking forward to serve. And I agree with a lot of them is let the men and women do what they need to do on the street. Let me negotiate the politics with the county and with the city. And let me and with Tallahassee to work to serve you, the community. That's ultimately what I'm sworn to do, serve the community. So I will negotiate, I will sacrifice, I will ask for sacrifice so that we can get the best service we need for the community. So if it's politician, then so be it, label me with it, but I am a police officer and I'm excited to wear both of those labels. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. O'Gara, if you did want 30 seconds to respond to Mr. Yates, you can.
The idea was not to take away anyone's privilege to be political. Having your car in your driveway is a privilege. It's called the Indianapolis plan. It's a great idea. It saves a lot of money on maintenance. However, when you stick, and I'm doing this to my disadvantage, saying don't put an O'Gara sign in there right now. Because you're telling the whole neighborhood there's a fractured agency. That's a simple thing. I'm not trying to take away anybody's right to vote, to be political. When the election's over, resume the privilege.
Thank you. And Mr. O'Gara, the next question goes to you also. Do you think it should be legal, or at least not a criminal offense, for people to have small amounts of marijuana for personal use?
Yeah, right. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. I just don't understand the concept of us wanting to impair more people's minds and decisions making. I don't get it. I understand the comparison with alcohol and all that other stuff. I don't know anyone that smoked a joint, went home and beat their wife. But those that drink alcohol do it often, and it's a terrible thing. But on top of, we have a problem already with alcohol and driving and DUIs. Why do we want to put this on top of that? Because the point came up that it might save money. In Miami, it might save money when you have 4,000 arrests for simple marijuana. You know, someone walking down the street, walking their dog, and a deputy catches them. I think it happened 88 times last year here. So it takes an hour to process it, longer than to write the citation. So we saved, 88 hours worth of work in a course of a year. I think it's a lot to do about nothing. I think we should leave it alone. We're just asking for more trouble.
Thank you. Mr. Staley.
I do not support the legalization of marijuana. I do, to some degree, support a county ordinance that gives a deputy sheriff an option to make an arrest or write a ticket. In reality, they already have that through a notice to appear, but it's technically still an arrest. However, I think this whole concept is fraught with problems. First off, I don't believe a county ordinance can conflict with state law or federal law. And then the other issues I see is, why did this person get a, quote, civil citation and another person get arrested? So I see lots of problems with this, and the best way to do it, if the state wants to do it, is do it at the state. I've seen all the studies coming out of Colorado. You absolutely do not want legalized marijuana in Florida. All kinds of problems with it.
Thank you. Mr. Wizard.
We need to base it upon state law, not county ordinance, because the problem is we don't want to have other people taking advantage of the system, say, oh, it's just a civil violation, so we're all going to have a party fest and smoke marijuana. That's things that we don't need. And the federal law is concerned, there is a civil violation if you're stopped for small marijuana. It's $5,000 civil penalty. The second offense, you can have your boat seized and your possession seized, and it's a felony. So we need to support our state law. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yates.
Do not support legalizing marijuana. I do support some form of a civil citation, and the reason why is because if you have a young person who's in college or something and they make a wrong decision, is it fair at a young age to sit there and blemish their record for the rest of their life? I'd like to see the civil citation where the fine is not used as an income to a county or a municipality or state or whatever. I would like for the income from that to go to a drug rehabilitation system that will help offenders who are on heroin, the strong drugs out here. Legalizing marijuana is only going to cause issues, but if you, for small amounts, if you give it to where there's a civil citation, and it grows. The first one may be $100. The second one's $250. The third one's $500 or $1,000. And after that, you lose that right. Something has to be done, but I don't want to sit here and take a 19-year-old and blemish their career or their record for the rest of their life over a small amount of marijuana.
Thank you. Mr. Doherty.
I agree with a lot of things that gentlemen have said up here. Mr. Staley's right. In Colorado, it's not working. There's all kinds of problems with it. There should be. We just don't want it. It leads to
other drugs to be coming in. We had a little problem with the pill mill, with the pills. Now we want to legalize a little bit marijuana. No, I disagree with it. because we're gonna have a problem with the kids, everybody, they got other things going on, so no, I disagree with the under 20 marijuana, because everything has not been spelled out with it. Who's gonna collect the fine, who's gonna get charged for how many times they've done it, and if they don't pay it, what's gonna happen to them? So I disagree with it.
And by the way, the county of Leon County has an adult civil citation program that is working very successfully. The Florida Sheriff's Association, almost all criminal justice reform agencies were behind a bill to provide an adult civil citation throughout the state. It was at the last second pulled by the House, no one could figure it out. The problem is that if you have a 17-year and 18-year-old smoking marijuana, the 17-year-old gets a civil citation, the 18-year-old gets an arrest record that follows them the rest of their life. That's the unfortunate part of it. That's why I believe in the adult civil citation program. It works successfully in Leon County, and it's going to come to Florida sooner or later. And if I could just have 30 seconds to respond to something that Mr. Lamb said. You said this several times, Mr. Lamb, that we don't have a narcotics unit. Well, you need to tell the 5 people in our narcotics unit that they haven't been doing the job over the past 3.5 years, and also under Mr. Fleming. It's the same unit that's been there since I created it back in 2001. There is a narcotics unit. You need to stop saying that because it upsets the public. We have someone that is assigned to the multi-county task force. They do a lot of great things. Our unit is very active. They work hard, and having you undermined by saying they're not working hard is just an unfortunate statement.
Yeah, I'm going to give both Mr. Lamb and Mr. Fleming an opportunity to respond.
Well, okay, you do have a narcotics unit, you reassigned them, they're working property crime. Look, I've been doing law enforcement 23 years. If you're proactive and you're out there addressing the narcotics problem, you'll see your return on investment on your violent and your property crime. I want to get out in front of it. I don't want to be reactive. I want to be proactive. So I've talked to some of the deputies within the agency. I can't say who, but they're not doing narcotics full time. Okay, I've called the complaint line to say about the drug house across the street from me, and they didn't have the time to address it. And the end result was, you saw. Thank you.
Mr. Fleming.
Quickly, about 80% of all crimes committed have some kind of relation to narcotics, and I'll let what Mr. Lamb said, I'll go from there. But one other thing where the sheriff made, and this is not a slap on the sheriff, where that law says that the deputies have discretion, I think that becomes a dangerous situation for a deputy to say, I'm going to do this, I'm not going to write that, I'm going to do this. There should be a defined line where that deputy has to make that decision. Thank you.
All right. Here's what we're going to do. I was planning to ask 7 questions and then an individual question. But if I do that, we're going to go over on our time. So how many of you want to get out of here on time? Okay, that's enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to go directly to the questions for each individual candidate. And we're going to start with you, Mr. Doherty. So here's the question. You've stated that you entered the race with the intention of having no political party affiliations and seeking no campaign donations. But tell us why you think Flagler residents should elect their first independent sheriff's candidate, and why it's not just running NPA isn't just a way to get into the general election.
Well, as I stated before, NPA, it really shouldn't matter what political group you belong to. You vote for who you think is going to do the best job. I have 20 years of law enforcement experience in the busiest police department in the world. I handled over 30,000 calls for police service. I never shot anybody, I never got shot at. I consider myself an expert in police work. And that's what I'm going to carry over to the deputies here. I have a tremendous amount of experience. I have a lot of education. I have a master's degree in education. As I stated before, education is the key. And I hope this country starts waking up and realizes that that is the key to solving problems, especially with law enforcement. We just have to educate people. It has to start when the kids are little. It has to go to the parents. And it's just a good thing to happen. So that's what I'm going to promote. If you feel like that's a good thing that your sheriff should do, then vote for me. If you don't think that it's a good thing, then vote for somebody else.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fleming. And if any of these are too sharp-edged, I just want to say that Tony Holt gave me these questions. Sorry, Tony. Okay, Mr. Fleming, after you succeeded Jim Manfrey in January 2005, you hand-selected several people to join your command staff. After Mr. Manfrey retook office in January 2013, he let go of many of your top people. If you were to win in 2016, would you continue the cycle of bringing in your own favorites to replace his favorites?
Well, first of all, I did have people that were within the agency that had years of experience that worked for me. I didn't let anybody go that worked for Sheriff Manfrey, that I recall, other than, I believe the chief deputy took off someplace in the middle of the night. But other than that, I didn't replace anybody that Jim had. I just tasked them with doing the job. I brought in people. I brought in Rick Look, who was a FDLE agent in charge out of Jacksonville. I took captains from patrol. I put majors who ran K9, who did a dive team, who had the experience in patrol. I believe they were all well. And while I have a minute, about 30 seconds left, I'd like to just take a moment and say it's been an honor and a privilege to be on this dais with you gentlemen here in law enforcement. It's been a fun time, I guess sometimes, and a hard time some other times, but it's been a pleasure to debate the issues with you and all. Thank you.
Thank you. Not going to get out on time. All right. Mr. Jones, during a 30-year career, you attained the rank of sergeant, but weren't chosen for any more promotions. You're running for sheriff, so that suggests that you harbored some ambition for a higher position, to move beyond the patrol ranks. Why do you think you were passed over?
Good question. I have a good answer for it. Each time lieutenant positions came up available, I put my name in the hat, but there always was a person who already chosen before the test came out. So that's why I didn't receive any eligible rank. But when Bunnell was going through all of their turmoil, in Bunnell, they was looking for an interim police chief. Sheriff Jim Manfrey recommended that I go over there and take over the position as police chief in the city of Bunnell to straighten out their problems in Bunnell. So at this time, I'm running for sheriff because I knew I could do the job. I led all these guys that's in the sheriff office. Some of the guys worked under me, and they became lieutenants, captains, and everything. They came all under my supervision. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question goes to Mr. Lamb. Mr. Lamb, you haven't lived in Flagler County for a long time. What is it about Flagler County Sheriff's Office that makes you want to mount a campaign to lead it? And how do you respond to the skeptics who see you as an opportunist?
Actually, thank you for that opportunity, and that question's come up quite a bit. That's fine. First of all, I've done a great service to the community in Jacksonville. I'm about to retire from the sheriff's office. I enjoy leading men and women towards a common goal to provide a service. My wife, like many of y'all, have decided to move to Flagler County because of the many amenities and attractions in the communities. Why is it so different for me to want to move here? So I have a skill set to provide to Flagler County. I know how to lead. I know how to run an agency. I've done it in Jacksonville, the third largest agency as an assistant chief. I worship here. I voted here. I live here. Yes, I rent. I still own a house in Jacksonville. My son goes to school here. My wife recently hung up her badge and her gun belt to teach here. She started already. The school starts Wednesday. My kids are enrolled here. Anybody who thinks I'm not committed to Flagler County hasn't seen me walk the neighborhoods and knock on over 6,000 doors and ride my bike to engage the community. Not just to introduce myself, but to find out what your concerns are so that when I become your sheriff, I'm ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Mr. Manfrey, during your campaign in 2012, you attacked your opponent, then Sheriff Don Fleming, for perceived lapses in ethics. You found yourself embroiled in your own ethics scandal shortly after you took office. Do you feel that you've maintained the appropriate level of integrity in the office since you've been in 2012?
You know, I take personal responsibility for what occurred. I apologize to the community for the distraction. I should have confirmed the advice I received from my undersheriff and from my director of finance. I made a big mistake, obviously, in hiring Rick, because he has done this same thing to other sheriffs in his past. But the fact is that at the end of the day, we're talking about $300, 3 days, 3 years ago. There were no policies in existence, there's no statutes. It's very clear that this was a political involved ethics investigation. In the very beginning, the ethics investigation said that they were going to dismiss it until they got a politically charged phone call from here in Flagler County. Next thing you know, it was a crime of the century. The fact was that we now have policies in dealing with all those situations, and we have turned a corner. Yes, we do have an organization that is based on ethics and on best training. In fact, we only require 40 hours of training. Our deputies routine have received 109 hours of training.
Thank you. And Mr. Staley, if you don't mind, I'm going to come back to that and give you an extra 30 seconds when you get your question, just to keep things going. So, Mr. O'Gara, even though you've been a manager in the corrections sector of law enforcement, you haven't ever worked a patrol capacity. Do you think you have the skill set and adequate knowledge to lead an agency that's centered on policing in a community?
But I have actually done patrols. We have borough facilities that we have to patrol the communities outside the facilities. We have a Rikers Island security. We have to do patrols of the 10 jails, the bakeries, the firehouse, the schools, and all that other stuff. I have more than enough qualifications to be the manager and the administrator here. The same way Jack Welch never repaired a refrigerator, I can run this jail. And I said, standing on my head. My largest jail had 3,000 inmates. They have 150 here. My officers were 1,400. I had 250 at my 7 o'clock roll call. And I'm all business when I'm here, when we're talking about this. You can go on social media and you'll see me making jokes. I'm a different person. And I do communicate. Unlike everybody here who's been quiet and playing it politically safe, you can communicate with me any day. You can go on my Facebook and you can communicate with me. I'm not afraid to make mistakes, but I've managed massive facilities with massive staff. Managing is managing.
Thank you. Mr. Staley, in 2004, you ran for Orange County Sheriff as a Democrat and lost to the incumbent. You had previously served as his undersheriff. In 2012, you were hired by Sheriff Manfrey to be his undersheriff. And shortly after your retirement last year, you announced you were running for the position of sheriff as a Republican. Some people might suggest that you're an opportunist. What is your response to that? And what is your response to what Mr. Manfrey said earlier as well?
Actually, it kind of goes hand in hand. Let me explain about how Florida sheriffs used to work. They can't legally do this now. But back when I started my career at the Orange County Sheriff's Office, you were required to be a member of the political party of the sheriff that hired you. Because quite frankly, that was their voting base. And I know for a fact that that occurred here in Flagler County in those days. So yes, at one time I was a Democrat. It doesn't mean that I believed in that. It means that I had to be that way because you signed an oath to the sheriff that hired you. Now let's jump forward. As far as running against Sheriff Berry, by the way, I was a Republican in his term until I was approached and asked to change parties to run against Sheriff Berry because he had been found guilty of ethic law, at that point he was not found guilty of ethic law violations, but there were ethical issues surrounding his office. That was 3 years after I retired. everything I said in that campaign was true. And the proof came 30 days after he won. And at that point, I did file an ethics complaint against him because I knew I was the only one that would stand up to an unethical sheriff that was the most powerful sheriff at the time in the state of Florida. And as a result, he was charged with 6 counts and pled guilty to 4 counts. I will never lie for anyone. I think I was given an extra 30 seconds, or is that included? It's included?
You can finish that thought, and then we'll move on.
I am endorsed by the founder of the National Institute of Ethics, and I will stand up for corruption wherever it is.
Thank you. Mr. Wisenet, you've been out of law enforcement for roughly 4 years. You left in 2012, the same year you ran for sheriff in Charleston, South Carolina. Shortly after your defeat, you moved to Flagler. So you've been in the community for about 4 years, a little bit less. Do you think you have enough local knowledge to be an effective sheriff here?
Well, I've been traveling to Flagler since 2001 when I was activated with the United States Coast Guard in Operation Noble Eagle. I've been traveling down here since 2001. My family owns a lot of property in the hammocks. Fell in love with this community. And I had been out of law enforcement for 4 years because when I retired with the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, I worked at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, training maritime law federal boarding officers for 4 years. I completed my master's degree in human services while my wife and I decided to make this our permanent home. We bought a house here. We have a vested interest in the community. And I'm running as a Republican and not as a write-in. But I did have 1,498 good people to write me in for as a write-in with the last name of Wisenet. So that's pretty phenomenal. So, and there again, if everyone's worried about my party affiliation, I was one of the 260-something candidates taken off the ballot because of one good old boy played politics, and the party that I was affiliated at the time wrote me off and said it was about President Obama's election, not mine. So I am a Republican. In 1962, I believe there was a great president by the name of Ronald Reagan, who was a Democrat, now a Republican. A sheriff is a sheriff. Thank you for asking that question.
You're welcome. Mr. Yates, you have spent your law enforcement career at the Holly Hill Police Department, where you've attained the rank of lieutenant. There are 37 employees working in that department, some of whom are under your direct command. The Flagler Sheriff's Office, by comparison, has about 250 employees. Why do you think you have the experience to take on the task of leading a significantly larger labor force?
Like I said before, yes, I work at a small agency as law enforcement, but before that I worked for Walmart, worked in several stores, helped open stores. At any given time, there was 250 to 300 employees that, as a manager on duty, I had to directly supervise. In law enforcement, just like the military, you have a chain of command. As the sheriff, I'm going to work close with the deputy chief, or chief deputy, and the other command staff to run the agency. As the sheriff, if you need to talk about what we did last weekend or whatever with deputies, you do that. But when it comes to if you have to make an order or have them do something, you use the chain of command. Without the chain of command, you're nothing. So the question is a little different. But again, you're not dealing with the new employee on a one-to-one basis telling them what to do. You go through the chain of command and work your way down. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, audience, we are going to go about 10 minutes late because I do want everybody to have time for a 1.5-minute closing statement. So I appreciate your patience. I'm sorry we're going a little bit late, but I would ask that you do stay for all of the candidates. And we'll start with Mr. Doherty. You have 1.5 minutes.
I want to thank everybody who came here tonight. It's a great thing. We live in a great country. It's an honor to be able to run for an office. I never thought I'd do it in my lifetime, but it's such an amazing thing to be able to do. And all you people here, thank you for coming tonight. And you know, the sheriff needs help. He needs help from the community. So everyone here, you all have talents. You all have contributions you can make to the community. And just the fact that you're here tonight says a lot about you. And I hope that I do become sheriff. And I hope that I'll be working with a lot of you. And it's just a very good thing. And I'm an MPA candidate, so I am on the final ballot. I'm not in the primary because no one has decided to run against me. I guess they're scared of me or something. But when you go to the polls, vote for the person you think is going to do the best job. And thank you for coming tonight. Thank you to the News Journal for putting this on.
You're welcome. Mr. Fleming, you have the floor.
Thank you. In my 38 years of law enforcement, I think I've seen it all. I've been on the road. I've been a patrol officer for 14 years. I worked in narcotics. I'm a member of the New Jersey Police Honor Legion. I'm a Vietnam veteran, combat veteran. But I also believe in the fact that I have 22 years as a chief executive with 2 different agencies. I was your sheriff for 8 years. I was proud of the job that we did. We reduced crime 5 years, 5 of the last 6 years that I was in office. We reduced crime on a consistent basis. The men and women of the agency, when I took off, only made enough money to go get welfare checks. I gave them 33 to 30% raise over the course of 3 years to bring them up to 30-some-odd thousand. And I think Jim has continued on with that. But I'm very proud of the men and women. I've stood by them through bad times, through good times. I've been there for them. I always had their back. And I think they understood that fact, that I always had their back. I believe that being a sheriff and being a manager, you have to have the men and women of the agency want to hold their head up high and work and get the respect not only of the people that they work with, but the people that they serve. And I believe that the community is much better off with me as their sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and listening to Planet Weller to listen to us debate and make a choice. I'm the only candidate up here that say I have 30 years of law enforcement here in Flagler County, where everyone is running for sheriff. I know the community, I know the county. I was out there, I patrolled the area, I'm ready to patrol it again. I have strong roots in Flagler County. My parents went to school here in Flagler County. I went to school in Flagler County. My kids went to school in Flagler County. Now my grandkids are going to school here in Flagler County. I care about Flagler County. I'm not leaving Flagler County. This is home for me.
Mr. Lang.
Yes, and I'm standing up. I did ask Pat if I could stand up before the other candidates start blasting on Facebook again for standing up. Okay, because it's important. It's the closing argument. You need to understand closing argument, closing statement. Nearly all men can handle adversity. If you want to trust a real man's character, give them power. Abraham Lincoln. I take a lot of lessons from Abraham Lincoln. Management by walking around. Get out to know the community, the men and women of the agency doing the work, servant leadership, empowerment. These are great words, they're catchphrases, but actually if you look at my history of the Sheriff's Office in Jacksonville, I actually embodied it. So I'm looking forward to bringing those innovative ideas to Flagler County Sheriff's Office. I come from a very professional law enforcement agency, and Flagler County is very professional. I remember when I was here in 1998, directing traffic to get a lot of the citizens out of Flagler County. I don't know that any other candidates were here. Thank you. You're right. Thank you. All right. Give me an extra 5 seconds. All right. So, look, I say that about Abraham Lincoln because integrity is important in the rank and the position of sheriff. I have uncompromised integrity. I led a very, very honored career with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. I'm looking forward to bringing that same career and integrity to the Sheriff's Office here. All right? We've decided to live here. We've moved here. Kids are starting school here. I'm excited to bring my knowledge, skills, and abilities to Flagler County. My wife is excited about going back to teacher. I look forward to your vote. I thank you. If you have any questions, please approach me. I look forward to it. August 30th, early voting started. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manfred?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, Pat, and the News Journal for holding this. I think you've done a great job as a moderator. I think the community expects 5 things from the sheriff. Number 1, to keep the public safe. We've done that. It's the lowest crime rate in 15 years. We had less homicides, about the same amount of burglaries and robberies, and 2,000 when we had half the population. Actual crime right now is as low as it was 10 years ago. Keep the public informed. We have done that. We create citizen advisory councils. We have coffee with the cop where I go out and speak to community members. We have one common ground group that I spoke of. We've used social media extensively to give you real-time messages about what's going on in your community and public service announcements to talk about the major issues that we're confronted. The third thing the public expects is keep the budget lean. As I indicated, we eliminated 8 upper management positions, creating 17 new road deputies. We've consolidated our vehicle maintenance and IT with the county. We've built 3 state-of-the-art facilities, all under budget and with more space than projected. Unprecedented. The fourth thing is to keep the deputies trained. As I indicated, our deputies received 3 times the training as required, including use of force, diversity, de-escalation, and community policing. And finally, the public expects us to keep our deputies safe, and we have done that, as I talked about with the internationally recognized lecturer. But more importantly, one of the things that kills more officers is traffic safety issues, and we have the Below 100 program that tries to keep the amount of deputies killed or officers killed in the line of duty under 100. It emphasizes officer and driver safety. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I ask for your support on August 30th and on November 8th. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. O'Gara.
First, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight, and I especially want to thank Pat Rice and the News Journal because they're courteous and they're decent. That's the reason I didn't answer Flagler Live, because I object to any publication that's going to demonize police officers, the military, or conservatives. Thank you for being here. All the promises made here tonight are useless if you have a fractured agency. Bringing back old regimes, creating new ones from outside agencies, it's unfair to those working there today. I have 18 years invested in Flagler. I've owned my property that long. I've been living here 9 years. It is important. It is important because then you know not to smear Northerners, because 70% of the people here are from someplace else. You know the rules and the city ordinances, and you don't violate them during the campaign. I'm very proud of my campaign. I complied with your pledge, with my pledge not to spend more than $35,000 on my campaign. I complied with city, county, campaign policies and ordinances. I've honored your request not to politic at festivals and pollute the scenic highway on A1A with my signs. I will continue to challenge my opponents on social media. I'm not afraid. I want their answers. All this stuff here is it's all scripted. I want to hear my concerns and me challenging them. This is easy stuff. You just keep reciting things. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you. Mr. Staley.
Well, I'm running for the community, as I said earlier. I'm the only guy running that graduated from the FBI Academy, master's degree in justice administration. I've laid out my plan for our community and how to make it safer. And I know that the 3-district concept that I planned in guardianship policing works, because in my former agency, when I was the undersheriff there, with a population of almost 900,000 that grew 200,000 while I was undersheriff, crime went down, our clearance rates went up, and we had a team. We were very progressive, received all kinds of awards, and that's what I would like to do here. When I mentioned earlier I'm the only one that has successful business experience. Well, you can't do that if you don't know how to build a team. I took a company from nothing in the Great Recession and grew it to 128 employees and $3.5 million a year in revenue from Tampa, Orlando, Claremont, Palm Coast, and St. Augustine. You can't do that if you don't treat your employees well, provide for them, and have them out there marketing your company. I have the proven track record, I can do it. Did it in Orange County, I did it in my private company, tried to do it here previously. So I would appreciate your vote on August 30th or in the mail voting that's going on now or early voting that starts on Monday. Find out more information on my plan at rickstaley.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wisener.
Here again, this is simple formula. Work together with the community, bring together the community as one, but be accountable at the same note. We live in a beautiful area. Since my wife and I bought a house here in Flagler County, our property values have gone up. And we want to make sure that they continue to go up by ridding the problems that we don't need. Drug problems, gang problems, and other problems in today's society. It's not about what you've done. It's about what you're going to do. I've attained a lot of medals in the United States Coast Guard. I received the Medal of Valor for breaking up a fight that a deputy was almost killed. Medals do not make up a person. The person makes up a person. And put your trust back in the community. And this time, I am going to stand up and recognize my wife, who should have got this medal right here. And I love you, and I gave you a wedding ring 4 years ago, and I love you. Thank you. Then your sheriff, you're going to have a part of this pie. I'm not going to jam down the whole pie in your throat. We're going to enjoy a slice of pie, that slice of heaven. The reason why we moved to Flagler County, because this is a great area. You're going to be a part of it. And there again, my name is not going to be on that facility. It's going to be named after the first sheriff, Perry Hall, who was killed in the line of duty. And it's not about a legacy. It's about doing the right thing. Thank you. Vote August the 30th. And the absentee ballots, we've already reached out to you, about 6,000. So make sure that you vote. You can see a picture of Ashley and I, and we're running for office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Yates.
I guess it all comes back to that question earlier about a politician. You gotta listen to what everybody says and decipher whether it's something they're just saying or is it something that they can do and that they mean to do. I plan, people say, do you have a 4-year or 8-year or 10-year plan? I have a 20-year plan because that's how long I want to be your sheriff. I'm 39 years old. I can do it. I'll be 59, going on 60, but I can do that. And I make that pledge to you. We have to, with this agency, create, like I said before, an elite training program. These deputies have to be the best of the best. For one, our staffing levels, which people will argue are right on track, they're not. When it takes 45 minutes for a deputy to respond to a simple traffic crash because they're coming from Bunnell, because all the other deputies are tied up, that is not, it doesn't work for me. And that was my daughter. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to run. 45 minutes. Not putting down the sheriff's office. They just don't have enough deputies, and I want to increase that. I work for Holly Hill. Yes, it's a small agency. It has 29 sworn officers, but the budget is $2.4 million for that. The city of Palm Coast pays $3 million for the same service, and look at the difference in size and population. There is not enough deputies on the street to make it safe for you or themselves. And I will do whatever I can to make that my pledge to you work and happen. We need to make this place a safer place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you get up and go, I just want you to give a final round of applause for all of these candidates for their good job. And Before you walk out the door, I want to remind you that our last debate is tomorrow at the News Journal Center in downtown Daytona Beach, and it's the Republican congressional candidates. And all three of them are going to be there, and I invite you to be there if you can make it down. Thank you, you've been a great audience.